morning, good afternoon, good evening. No matter where you are in the world, welcome to Shutter Network. We have an amazing show lined up for you today. It is Business 101. So if you're a small business starting out, and by the way, it doesn't matter if you're a photographer. You could be a baker, a lawyer, a doctor, a florist. These are business principles that are of concern to you and your business. So pay attention today. I promise you, your mind is going to be filled with information and new ideas to help promote your business and take it to that next level. So today's show, I always like to start off with just talking a little bit about what's new in the industry, what's going on. And so a lot of cool things going on. First, I want to talk to you about some new software that's out there by a company called McFun. And it's not like you're thinking, McFun. It's MacFun. It's an amazing company. They are producing a product that I am personally using and in love with. The two of them are Intensify Pro and Snap-Heal Pro. And Intensify is a raw editor. It can adjust tonal contrast, exposure, and it's got some great built-in HDR features. And I'm going to throw a link up for you so that you guys can go to our website and download a free 14-day trial, as well as download some free presets that I've created. And you can see all the before and after images that we created with it. So an amazing product. I ran into these guys at Imaging USA this year, and probably one of the best connections I made at that show was running into these guys. Kudos to you. A really, really well-produced product and at a very economical price point. So guys, check that software out. Snap-Heal is, I would say, it's the healing brush on steroids. Compared to what's built into Photoshop. So, don't take my word for it. Go check out this software. It's a free 14-day trial. Give it a whirl, and I promise you're going to probably love it. Also, next, I want you to take a look. This is one of those things that I think just makes me smile in our industry. It's just incredible to me as creative professionals. We still can't wrap our minds around just copyright and how all that stuff really works and impacts our business. So check out this article. It's currently being carried on Petapixel. I'm going to throw up a link for you. But this article on Petapixel is a photographer in Miami looking to get images from other photographers so that he can pad his portfolio. And by the way, the terminology being used is his. He's looking to pad his portfolio. So check this out. This is how ludicrous this proposition is. Maybe you're not offended by it. I don't know if I'm offended by it or just shocked by the whole thing, but maybe in our industry I should stop being shocked. He's asking to take your images, your wedding images, because he's just starting his business out and he doesn't have any images, so that he can put these images on his website and go after your wedding clients. So your competitor doesn't want to take his own pictures. He wants to borrow your pictures so that he can book your weddings. I don't really understand what this person was thinking. I think they suffer from what I call DDS, which is dum-dum syndrome. So this person, we just got to rule out stupid this year. 2014 has to be the year of no stupid in our lives. And so check this out. Don't do anything like it. It's just completely ludicrous. I don't even know if the ad is still up anymore. Hopefully he's smart enough and taking it down. All right, and finally, as we sit here in the March time frame, it is senior season, right? So probably not around the world. High school senior photography isn't that big of a thing around the world, which I don't particularly understand why. High school seniors, in and of themselves, are all want to be cool, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what culture you're in. It doesn't matter what language you speak. When you're a teenager, the one thing you're looking to do is just be cool, and that's what you want. And so here in the Midwest, what's very, very popular is offering this high fashion shoot for high school seniors. And so I don't want to get into it. We'll produce an episode that's all about seniors. But at this point in time, if you're thinking about it or thinking about breaking into it in the Northeast or on the West Coast, now's the time to start thinking about it. So you've got to start putting your marketing plan together, start thinking about locations, where you want to shoot, how you introduce this into your business, how much you want to charge for it. These are the things you have to start thinking about now. So this isn't necessarily what's new in the industry, but it's definitely something that should be on the front burner for you and your business, especially as you're growing. Now's the time. Don't wait till June or July to start thinking about high school seniors. It's way, way too late at that point. And like I said, I think there's enough interest. In the next few months, we'll probably produce an episode talking about high school seniors in general, some marketing ideas, business tips on how to go after that market. So we have got an amazing show for you today. Like I said, if you are a small business Doesn't matter what kind of business you're in, you're going to learn something from this episode because we're going to talk about the things that are challenging you in your business. But most importantly, okay, I'm going to tell you where to go for help. So we've got Greg from SCORE. SCORE is an organization that's mission is all about helping small businesses. So he's going to be on the show today, handling some questions, and most importantly, giving you guidance on where you can go to help you in your business. SCORE is a national organization, so you're more than likely going to be able to find people who can help you, free consulting and guidance for your business. I've got my accountant here, Kevin Meters here from Clifton Larson Allen, and he's going to walk us through some of the things that are impacting you from a photography perspective. And when you think of accounting, you're thinking, I know you're all thinking about like, oh, keep filing taxes. That's the obvious. Keeping track of bookkeeping. But really, we're going to talk a little bit about, we'll talk about those things, but we're going to talk about deductions as well, right? Because as you're growing your business, you've got a lot of deductions that you're probably missing just because you don't know that you can actually take those deductions for you and your business. And I'll tell you what, the government takes enough of my money where I can get a legitimate deduction. I want to take advantage of that, right? We don't want to pay taxes where we don't have to. That doesn't make good sense, right? You got to be a good business person, and you've got to look at this stuff because in the end, it's all going to cost you more money. Now, don't forget, on this show, we love being social. We want you guys out there. We want you talking about the show, and we love giving away free prizes. So get social for me. We're going to give away 1 hour of free consulting with me. That's a $600 value. We can do it over Skype. We can do it face-to-face. I can help you with your pricing and packaging. Whatever you feel you need help with, we're going to give you that 1 hour of consulting. And in order to do that, you got to get social for me. So on Twitter, we're at Sal Cincotta. On Facebook.com, it is /BT Shutter. And what I want you to do is tweet out hashtag Shutter Network, your aha moment or quotes that have stuck from the show. And next week, we'll pick one lucky winner to get that free consulting service. I hope you think you're a lucky winner or you're just stuck with me for an hour. So either way, we'll have fun doing it. Don't go away. We'll be right back after the break, and we'll start digging into Business 101.
This episode powered by Canon Professional Service and Support.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Let's start digging into it. So in today's show, we're going to talk a little bit about understanding sales taxes, quarterly taxes, bookkeeping. We'll talk a little bit about the value of your time and outsourcing, something that too many times sounds like a dirty four-letter word in our industry, but it's okay to outsource. You got to let go of things. You're a one-man, one-woman show. You can't do it all. It is just literally impossible to grow your business that way. No successful business has ever grown that way. You've got to introduce scalability into your business. We're going to cover some marketing 101 concepts. We'll go over goals and objectives for your business. Where do you start? You know, if you're working that corporate job and you want to punch out, you want to do this full time, you want to chase your dreams, all sounds great, right? Until rubber meets the road, so to speak. You've got to be able to just get going, get this stuff, get some traction. And that's where I see most people stumble, right? They know they love photography. They know they love being a baker or whatever that hobby is that you want to turn into a full-time job. Where they stumble and fall is execution. They don't know how to move forward. They don't know how to get there. I'm going to try and help give you that plan or at least a blueprint so you can start moving forward. And then, of course, that all ties into making your dreams a reality. That's what we all want. You know, when I rewind back into my life, go back to 2006, 2007, I was working for corporate America. I worked for Microsoft for about 10 years. And ultimately, I wasn't doing what I loved. I mean, Microsoft is a great company. They take care of their employees. They do things, but for them. But at the end of the day, it wasn't what I loved. It wasn't what I wanted to do. My passion was photography, and I wanted to chase my dreams. But you got to have a plan. You got to have a blueprint to get there. And I'll tell you what, when you're doing what you love, it never feels like work. And there's not been many people in this world who can say that they're lucky. And not a day goes by I don't realize how lucky we are to be doing what we love, working in the field we love, and creating something amazing. We're involved in the most happiest days of our clients' lives. Think about it. If you shoot weddings, you're there on a happy day. If you're shooting high school seniors, you're celebrating an amazing moment in their lives. I get paid to do that. You get paid to do that. How incredible is that? And so for those of you who are still looking to chase that dream, I want to help give you that path to get there. So let's keep going here. All right, when we talk about chasing your dreams, it sounds crazy scary, right? I mean, it's just like, how How do I get there? Yes, I want to chase my dream, but so many people are paralyzed by their fears of being able to take that step, right? And I'm here to tell you, I promise you, you can absolutely do it. And again, I'm going to reflect on my own story. Rewind back to 2006, 2007. I was working a full-time job, corporate America, Microsoft, taking a six-figure paycheck. I had benefits, health insurance, you name it, stock options, everything was there. But I knew I wasn't happy. I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do long term. And so you've got to do it, punch out, take that, take that risk, so to speak. But you can't just do it blindly, okay? That would be irresponsible to you, your family, your kids. You just need a plan, okay? And that's what I want to help get closer to today is, okay, Sal, if I'm going to punch out, if I'm going to chase my dreams, I got to make a certain amount of money to pay my bills, right? Mortgage, all that stuff. Not everybody's going to be on this path with you. If you're a 20-something, you can live in mom's basement. I suppose you can get away with it. But if you're a 30-year-old, 40-year-old chasing that dream, you better have a backup plan, or your wife is going to be looking at you, or your husband's going to be looking at you like, what the hell were you thinking? And the key to all this is it's not about where you are right now, okay? It's about where you want to be. So as you're listening to this message today and watching the show, don't think about where you are right now. I mean, that's always important for context, but what I'm really trying to drive the point home on is, where do you want to be? Where do you want to be in a year? Where do you want to be in 5 years? You've always got to look forward. And that's how me and my team operate. Rarely am I looking at where we are right now. You know, I celebrate for a moment, something good happens, we do our happy dance, but man, we are right on to what's next. You cannot just get stuck in the here and now, and you cannot celebrate your successes too much. Enjoy them, but you got to move on and start looking at where you want to be. And I think that changes your mindset whenever you can look at where we're going. That's the thing. You've got to have a clear path. Or else, imagine if you get in your car and you start driving around, but you don't plug in the coordinates to your GPS, right? You're just driving around. So yeah, you can kind of see where you are, but where are you going? Got to be able to answer that question. And here's the thing. As a photographer, you have to, or as a creative, I should say, you have to understand that talent alone is not enough. It's not going to do it. You could be the best photographer in the world. You can be the best baker in the world. But if you are a horrible business person, you are going to be broke. And so if you want to be a starving artist, have at it. I'm not going to be shy about it. There's nothing in my world that wants to be a starving artist. There's just nothing about being a starving artist that is glamorous to me. I want to be successful. I want to make money. I want to have nice cars. I want to have nice things. I want to go on nice vacations. I make no apologies for it, nor should you. Stop believing that because you're a creative or because you're an artist that you should feel bad about wanting to make money. You should not feel bad. And if you're an entrepreneur, you're taking all the risk. And in taking that risk comes the reward. And that's the part you got to understand. So if you work for somebody for the rest of your life, you're going to be subject to working for a salary. But when you take that risk and that step out on your own, that's when the big reward comes. But like I said, there's also a lot of risk associated with that. If you think about my day-to-day, what I need you to understand is a certain part of it is photography. Call it 10 or 15%. 80 to 90% of my day is business related. Social media, marketing, advertising, network. And I think a lot of people are under a false impression that if you're a creative and a photographer, you're going to spend 9 out of 10 hours shooting. That's not how it is, I promise you. It's not even close. 15 to 20% is skill related, and then the rest is all business related. And so you have to understand that. You can't be a photographer, you have to be a business person. You can't be a baker, you have to be a business person. The business hat has to be there more than not. And again, that's where I see a lot of creatives fall short. So I apologize if I'm beating you over the head with this, but so many of my creative peers, if you will, really, really struggle with this concept because they don't like it. They don't like sitting in meetings with people. They don't like selling, and they'd really rather just be stuck in their art, which is fine, okay? As long as you have someone around you who is going to handle that stuff, because you absolutely need somebody who's going to do it. It's not going to do itself. No one's going to do social media for you. No one's going to put marketing campaigns together for you. Somebody's got to do it. And so that's where we got to be. Let's keep moving, huh? Goals and objectives. Where do we start? So here's the question you got to be able to answer. Where are you today, right? So there's two types of people I'm talking to in this scenario. One is the established veteran, the business owner. Let's talk photography. If you're an established photography studio, where are you at today? What are your gross sales from last year? We're sitting here early 2014, so we've got plenty of time to make 2014 successful. Where are you today? What did your studio do last year? Did it do 100,000? Did it do 200,000? Were sales going backwards or forwards? So when you look at 2012 or growth from 2012 to 2013, are you up or are you flatline? Right? These are the things you got to understand where you are. It becomes part of your blueprint. If you're just starting out, we still got to answer that question. Where are you today? How many weddings do you have on the books for 2014? How many seniors or portraits or whatever kind of work you're doing? How many do you have today? And what does that growth plan look like? Where do you need to be successful? And so really the $1 million question is, if you are working a full-time job someplace else and this is just your hobby or passion right now, what's the number you need to punch out? And if you don't know the answer to that, you've got to get serious about this. So rewind back to 2007. 2006, 2007. I knew I wanted to punch out. And my minimum number, believe it or not, was about 20 weddings on the books. And at the time, my average wedding was about $3,000. So do the math. I was going from a high six-figure job at Microsoft to, I said my bar to punch out was $60,000. I don't know what I was thinking about, quite frankly, but that was the number. And here's the risk I was willing to take. And this is why you got to talk to your spouse, because I'm not sure our spouses are willing to take the same risk we are sometimes. But here's the risk I was willing to take. The $60,000 represented the ability to just pay my monthly bills. As long as I could pay my monthly bills, and I was looking 6 months out, that wasn't for the year. I felt as long as I had a 6-month cushion to pay my bills, I knew that I would take all that extra time I had now on my hands because I was no longer working that 8-hour job. I would take that time and go after seniors, families, babies, marketing, networking, and I felt very confident that I would be able to take that extra time, invest it back into the business, and take it to the next level. So that was my mindset, but there was a plan in place. You've got to have a plan. You've got to know where you are today and where you need to be to punch out. And if you're an established studio or business, you got to know where you are today and where do you want to be. If your business plan is one of flatline growth, meaning no growth, like let's say you did $100,000 this year and you go, I want to do $100,000 next year. That's really not a plan for success. To me, that's a plan for failure. You've got to grow. You've got to innovate. If you're not growing, to me, this is my personal opinion, it means you're not innovating. If you're creating an innovative product or service, there's no scenario where you're not growing. So my business is founded on 20 to 40% year-over-year growth. And I'll give you a perfect example. This year, the year of 2013, as we wrapped up, there was actually no growth in my business. That was 100% by design. When we started 2013, we looked back at the previous year, and I believe off the top of my head, we saw about 40 to 50% year-over-year growth. That was horrifying for us. And so to see that kind of growth, you know what starts happening? Customer service starts failing. You don't have the right people in your organization because you're growing too quick. You can't keep up with demand. And my business is one that has been built and founded on service. And so what we did for 2013 was we took a step back, a time out, and said, we're not going to grow. We're not going to add new businesses. I was on probation. Many of you know for 2013, I wasn't allowed to start any new businesses for this very reason, was to make sure we got our house in order so that 2014 could be that launch point. Now, speaking of 2014, as we sit here in March, we are targeting 40% year-over-year growth for the year of 2014. We are looking to innovate. We are looking to dominate certain parts of what we do. And so you've got to start thinking that way as an entrepreneur. You've got to be competitive. Get that competitive spirit in you. There's nothing wrong with it. All right, so let's break it down. Whatever number you come up with is completely realistic. So you could tell me you want to be a $100,000 studio, a $200,000 studio, a $500,000 studio. I'll be the first one to tell you it is 100% possible. But the next question I'm going to have, as soon as I tell you it's possible, how do you plan on doing it? How do you plan on getting there? So let's take a look at some numbers. If you said, hey, Sal, I want to have a $100,000 studio, that's 25 weddings at a $4,000 average. Very, very doable. The average wedding across the United States is about $2,600 to $3,000. And that's just the wedding. When you factor in, bridal sessions, engagement sessions, and changing your sales process, not posting online, we'll talk about selling in a future episode, getting to $4,000 all in for a wedding is realistic, whether you want to accept it or not. The average wedding with us spends close to $10,000 in the Midwest. So if we can get $10,000 for a wedding in the Midwest, how can you not get $4,000 all in on the East Coast, West Coast, and other parts of the country? So that is a realistic plan. 25 weddings at $4K a piece. But if you come back to me and you say, hey, I don't want to do anything but weddings. I want to keep a $4,000 average, but we want to do a $500,000 business. Okay, well, that's 125 weddings at a $4,000 average. I'm going to be the first to tell you that's not going to happen. that's not based in reality, right? That's insanity. And so you've got to come up with numbers that actually make sense and are very achievable. And that first set of numbers I told you, I think are very, very achievable. Let's go look at another scenario. Let's say we want to be a $200,000 studio. I would make the argument that that would be 25 weddings at a $5,000 average, 50 seniors at a $1,000 average, and 25 families at a $1,000 average. You're starting to get the gist of how this works. You can alter these numbers any way you want. You could say, okay, well, I don't want to do 25 weddings. I want to do 20 weddings at a $4,000 average. Well, then we got to adjust our seniors. Maybe we got to do 70 seniors. So it's all within your control. But what we're doing here is putting together a very rudimentary business plan, or call it an action plan, of where we want to be so we know what beat we're marching to. And when you have a team around you, it's very important that the entire team knows and understands what beat you're marching to. If they don't know what beat you're marching to, how the hell is anybody going to get there? And so you've got to understand it as well, and this becomes really realistic. So what I want you to do is write this down. I want you to write the number down of where you want to be, and I want you to stare at it, like right now. Every day, I want you to stare at this number of where you want to be. I want 25 weddings. I want 50 seniors. I want it to just burn. Put it in your bathroom. Put it on the side of your computer monitor, because this is your dream. This is your passion. This is where you want to be. You've got to get a fire under your ass and get going after this stuff. No one's going to do it for you. And the thing is, what you have to understand is this is not easy. All too often, people look at what we've done with our studio and what we've accomplished, and they think, oh, well, you're just lucky. You've got clients who will pay more. I'm in the Midwest. I'm no more lucky than you are. I've got my competitors in the same market who aren't able to get to the same clients we do because they don't have a plan. They're not going after it. So it's not about luck. It's about hard work. We work in our studio, no exaggeration, 12 to 16 hours per day, 7 days a week. And so it is a lot of hard work, but it's achievable. You can do it. You don't have to have a college degree. You don't have to have piles of cash to do it. It's just about putting in the hard work, the sweat equity, and having that plan that you're marching to. The plan is usually where I see a lot of you struggle. And so now that we have that number, okay, we need a secondary plan, right? How do we achieve it? So if you say, hey, I want to do 25 weddings, 50 seniors, 25 families, all sound amazing, right? That's that high level sort of executive summary of where you're looking to be with your business. Now the next question is, how do we execute? What do we need to do to get there? Well, enter the dirty word of marketing. As a photographer, you've got to switch gears here and start putting together a marketing plan in order to get there, because the brides aren't going to just come to you. And the concept of it being grassroots and everybody just finding you, and you got a friend who knows friends and knows people who runs in an event planning, that's not going to work, man. You've got to learn how to fish. You've got to figure it out for yourself. You've got to put a plan of attack together. So let's just talk real simple. If you're going to follow my model, the $200,000 model, where we said, hey, we're going to go after weddings, families, baby, or weddings, families, and seniors. By the way, alter that any way you want. Maybe it's families, glamour, and seniors, right? Whatever it is you're looking to do, all I'm trying to do is show you a blueprint, framework. If you now have families, weddings, and seniors, we're going to need 3 marketing plans, right? Because the same marketing plan that works for weddings is not the same marketing plan that's going to work for seniors, is not the same marketing plan that would work for glamour. These are 3 completely different markets. Don't get me wrong, there might be some cross-pollination, if you will, across the 3 markets. But for the most part, getting to each one of those clients is going to require a little bit different plan, a little bit different marketing and advertising. And so we've got to really think across all these different metrics. How do I connect with the right client? Or I'm sorry, not metrics, these 3 different markets. How do I connect with the right client? We've got to think through that. And so first thing we got to do is define your target market. Whether we are talking seniors, weddings, families, who is your client? That's the thing to understand. And so let's just talk families for a second. When we talk about family photography, you could go to the picture people and have a family session where you sit on a white background and the session comes in and $19.99 and you get all the 8x10s and 5x7s you want, and the photographer has a little squeaky toy on top of their thing, and if that's what you want to do, then that's what you got to go after. You've got to figure out what's right for your brand. Do you want to be an elite brand with limited photo shoots, or do you want to be a more generic brand where you're making your money on volume? Okay, I'm not here to tell you which one is right or which one is wrong, but it is something you need to understand in order to realize you're not going to get $1,000 for a family shoot if you're not more of a high-level brand, right? You're going to get $19.99 and you're going to compete with those studios. And I got news for you. My time is worth more than $19.99. Now, if I were a 16-year-old taking pictures, maybe that sounds like a great job, but I don't think most of you running a business want to be doing that. So we got to define our target market. Who do we want to go after in each one of these niches? Then you need to define your budget. What is your marketing budget? And if you're sitting there going, I've got no marketing budget, I call BS on that one, because you all have money for what you want to have money for. You're spending money on equipment, on lighting, on flashes, on workshops and seminars, all of which are very, very important. But guess what? If you don't put any money whatsoever into a marketing plan, how's anybody going to know who you are? And just don't think a marketing plan has to be tens of thousands of dollars. There's things you can do that are somewhat grassroots, somewhat sweat equity related, but there still needs to be a plan of attack there, and there still needs to be some budget. And that budget can be dollars, that budget can be even in your own sweat equity, your own time. And then, of course, how are we going to get to them? So now we know our target market, who they are. We've got a little bit of a budget, but how do we get to that target market? So here's some ideas I put together for you. Future episode, we'll talk more about marketing and other ideas, but here's some high-level stuff. The plan. Let's talk about weddings, bridal shows, referrals from work, right? If you're a working full-time job, start getting creative. Start reaching out to people you work with. Get your website up to date and go after the people you work with in your office, right? Now, don't do it for free unless you're super, super new. And with that, you need to establish the premise that, hey, the reason I'm doing this for free is because I'm just starting out. That's very important because you don't want to show up on someone's wedding day and ruin it, right? Because you're experimenting. So as long as they know what they're getting into, I'm okay with that. But we've got referrals from work. We can go after Facebook friends and just, of course, friends and family. We can even do some marketing and advertising on Facebook. And so I'm not going to tell you what the plan is, how to word your copy and all that stuff, but I'm giving you the area to go after. I'm telling you here are 3 to 5 ways that you can reach your target that are either relatively inexpensive or requires no cost at all. They're just all sweat equity, right? You just got to be hustling. You got to be willing to go after this and try and find that business. What about seniors? For seniors, we can do direct mail. There's going to be budget there. Look to companies like Marathon Press. They can help you with this process. They can help you generate lists. They can help you with all the marketing material. Look for the school paper, right? Very inexpensive to run ads in the local school papers. And then, of course, friends and family. Once again, take advantage of all your connections in the marketplace. You have got to get crafty when you're just starting out and going after this. And make no mistake, even if you're an established studio, that doesn't mean you get away from basics. This is basic stuff. So if I can get free business just by tapping into some of these areas that I haven't been tapping into, I'm willing to do that because it's all free money, right? The cost of acquisition of a new client becomes very, very inexpensive when I'm getting business this way. What about photographing families? Again, direct mail, great way to do it. Local city flyers. Almost every town today has one of those pamphlets that they hand out in the grocery stores and things like that. Might be a very economical way for you to put something in there around the holidays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, in the fall for fall family pictures. These are easy ways, relatively inexpensive, to get your message out there. Co-workers at work for family pictures in the fall. And then, of course, auctions. When I was starting out, we were doing about 7 to maybe even 15 auctions a year. So we were working with local high schools, booster clubs, charity events, and donating a free session with no picture, or donate a session plus an 11 by 14, right? Every event was a little bit different. But I knew by doing that, I was guaranteed 20 families, 15 families to come through my studio and a potential chance to develop a new client and a new sale based on that. These are really easy, simple ways that you can start immediately trying to market your business. Now, like I said, I know I'm not giving you the whole blueprint. Here's how much you should charge. Here's how much you can expect to make. All that's dependent on you and the business plan you're putting together. And of course, those metrics we said, hey, I want to do 25 families at this amount. You've got to reverse that out. If you want you want to have a $500 average, well, then you've got to put packages together that make sense to get to that $500 average. Let's talk a little bit about your team and just outsourcing in general. This is an area I see a lot of photographers struggle with, is just understanding the concept that you can't do it all. And I know as artists, we're control freaks. We want to control everything, and maintain as much control as humanly possible. You can't do it all. That is the bottom line. It is impossible to do it all. You've got to surround yourself with a team that you absolutely trust. So I outsource everything. everything I can possibly outsource, I 100% do. And so what I want to do is go over the list of possible things that you should be outsourcing. And again, I just want to stress, I realize as creatives, we hate outsourcing things, but you can't do it all alone. And so here's a list of, there's probably, we could put together 100 things that as photographers and business owners that we're ultimately responsible for. But here's a list of things that come to mind that are the biggest tasks we work on. Accounting, legal, post-production, website, social media, printing, packaging those products, delivery of the products, shooting, photographing, the main tasks that we want to do. It's why we got into this. We want to be photographers. Marketing, planning, where's the future? Where are we going? Customer service. All these tasks are ones we own. Here's what I want to be responsible for. I want to be responsible for my marketing, advertising, setting vision, and then of course shooting. Everything else I look to outsource because there's only so much capacity. And especially if you're working a full-time job right now, you have no capacity. You guys are living in la la land where you guys think you're going to work your job, come home, edit pictures, give good customer service. You got to let go. You've got to figure out what you can let go of. You've got to make these choices and just make the decision to give it up. Could I do my own taxes? I guess I could. I have no desire to. It's absolutely comical for me to think I'm going to be able to do my own taxes. Can I do my own post-production? I guess I could. I know how to edit, but it's ridiculous for me to think I'm going to achieve a 2-week turnaround time of fully edited images for my clients and be busy. It's just not possible, and it's not the smartest use of my time. And so you've got to figure out, especially when it comes to post-production, I don't understand why, as photographers, we believe color correction is something that's so magical. It is monkey work, man. There's nothing magical about post-production. My philosophy on post-production is, can my team get it 85 to 90% of the way there? Do I expect them to be 100%? No, I really don't care if they're 100% because they're not me. It's almost impossible for them to edit and be exactly like me. But the flip side to that is if they get it 100% like me, the only way to do that is for me to do the editing. That's where I'm going with this. And I don't want to do the editing. I'd rather be 10% off and free up all that time. For me, a normal wedding takes 8 to 12 hours to process a 3,000 to 4,000 image job. You know how many other things I can do with 12 hours? And if you're working a full-time job, again, this makes no sense. Same with legal. You could certainly incorporate your own business by doing one of those online websites. You're going to miss 3 things that if, God forbid, something happens, the lawsuit that you will face and the loopholes that you've introduced your business to, is it really worth the $300 or $400 you saved? Right? We can't be penny wise, pound foolish. These are the things we have to think about. So let's keep going with this, okay? The first thing I want you to do, right, if we talk about wrapping here and lots of information kind of at this business 101 level, you're looking to punch out, you want to grow your business, you want to start doing this full time, the first thing I want you to do, set your goals. Where do you want to be for 2014? It's still early enough to figure out where you want to be this year, right? So don't give up on this year. Don't start thinking about next year. This year, right now, what are your goals for the year? Write them down, put them on your mirror, put them on your monitor, stare at them every day so that you feel like a failure if you're not accomplishing them. Sorry, man. We come from a society where it's just this this level of expectation. It's this level of entitlement. It doesn't work that way. This is the world of business. Nobody cares about your feelings. Nobody cares about what you think. It's all about being successful as a business owner. And so you have to wake up every day and realize today's the day you either fail or today's the day you succeed. And those are harsh words, but you have to understand if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, that is what we face. Get competitive. Understand that it is about losing and failing. Not everyone can succeed. It's about hard work, putting your nose to the grindstone, so to speak, and getting out there and getting crap done. I promise you can do it, but you got to have that path. Write it down. Every single day. Again, hard work, but I promise you, you can do it. So, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this little segment. I do want you to get social again. Remember, we have 1 hour of free consulting we're giving away. All you got to do is go out there, tweet that aha moment for you or quotes that have stuck, hashtag Shutter Network, and you can find us on Twitter at Sal Sincata, and then of course on Facebook at BT Shutter. Hashtag Shutter Network, your aha moment or those quotes that have stuck through the segment. Don't go away. We'll be right back after the break. We've got Kevin coming up, and we're going to start talking about some accounting issues and challenges that you're going to face in your business. And I got news for you. When it comes to deductions, I'm always looking for new tips. We'll be right back.
This segment brought to you by Bay Photo Lab. Quality, service, innovation. Get 30% off Bay Photo Thin Wraps by using code SHUTTER30 only at bayphoto.com.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We are here with Kevin Meter from Clifton Larson Allen. He is my accountant, so I'm very happy to have him here, and I've been working with him for about 7-8 years now even. So welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thanks for having me, Sal.
Yeah.
Appreciate
So this is really good. I think it's very important for people to get professional advice from true professionals. You know, all too often people hear things secondhand, thirdhand, and it's great to have a professional like yourself here, just kind of setting the record straight on some things. So before we get started, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your company, how long you've been doing this, and what your area of expertise is.
Sal, I've been a CPA since 1985. Been in the public accounting business for a little over 30 years. Clifton Larson Allen is a firm, and it has 3 distinct industry groups, and those are specifically the tax and assurance, and that's the compliance work that we do, the tax returns, the audits, the reviews. And then it has a wealth advisory service, and that does investments. And then the third component is our outsourcing group, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well.
So you guys really do have a well-rounded organization for people, not only in their accounting, but it sounds like their planning needs as well.
Yeah, the real unique thing I think about our firm is even though we're very large, we specifically focus on privately held business owners. And that's a little bit different than some of the larger firms who specifically work with public companies. And so our focus is specifically on that
small business. Yeah, and I will say, you know, from my own perspective, that's part of what I've loved about working with you and your organization. I've been working with you directly from the very beginning, and I know other photographers and artists out there, I think we become very needy in that sense that we don't trust a lot of people. You know, I'm not a very trusting person. And so it's always helpful for me to keep seeing the same familiar face who understands my business, where I've come from, and I guess the spirit of what I'm doing. So what I want to do is start talking about sales tax in general and what things photographers need to consider as it pertains to sales tax. And I know I'm opening up a can of worms here, so I don't expect you to cover every single sales tax issue. And we both spoke earlier that it is a state-by-state thing. But I think generally, most photographers don't quite understand when or how they should be charging for sales tax in general.
Well, Sal, you bring up a very complicated subject. Sales tax is, as you said, it's very state by state. Facts and circumstances in a particular operational from that standpoint. And then, the big thing that we see is that you really need to understand what's going on. And so we work specifically with our clients to make sure we've got a good understanding of how they're operating their business. In this particular case with photographers, generally sales of service are not taxable, but sales of tangible products and merchandise are taxable. And so what we're trying to really look at here...
Can I cut you off here? Service being the actual act of photography.
Absolutely.
Tangible product being prints.
Could be a DVD, could be a photo album.
DVD. So if I give a client their digital negatives on a DVD or thumb drive or something like that, that's a tangible product. Okay,
right.
Keep going.
Right. So what we're really looking for is to get that good understanding of how they operate their business so that we can make sure that they're paying the proper sales tax. This is a huge area. We see some businesses in the past that have actually failed over sales tax issues. Not charging the right sales tax, not charging the right state sales tax. So there's all kinds of issues, and as you know, the states are in a bind for revenue, and so they're really ramping up to make sure that they're getting their fair share of the sales tax dollars.
So they're making the investment in just audits to make sure they're looking for their money, right? So,
absolutely, they are.
Yeah, so you guys out there, you better get it together, man. I'm telling you, this sales tax thing is something that affects all of us. And Kevin, you're not lying when you say this is a complicated issue, because I remember when we first started our business, going back 2006, 2007, we spent a significant amount of time going back and forth on sales tax because I wanted to do it right from the beginning. I didn't want to get caught in this situation where I build a successful business, but now I've got these skeletons in my closet. And it always seems like I'm still not 100% sure if we're doing it right.
And that's the facts and circumstances that I'm talking about, is we really need to understand this to a very detailed level in order to make sure that we're doing everything properly. One of the services that we do, we actually have a division within our company, state and local taxation division, and that's all they do. They research all the different states' sales tax issues, And so that we can guide our clients, we can make sure that they're doing it properly. And so we need to make sure when we bring on new clients, that's one of the first things that I take a look at is to say, okay, let's get a good understanding of how they're operating their business, and let's make sure that we're filing sales tax properly. One of the things that we can do for clients or for prospective clients is we'll do something called a reverse sales tax audit. And that, to me, is one of the things that it's got a lot of benefits for our prospective clients or for our existing clients. And what we do is basically we try and go in there with our experts and we take a look at it just like a state auditor would. We're in advance of that. We want to make sure that we flush out any issues. So we're taking a look at it for a couple reasons. We want to see if there's anything that we can do to benefit our clients. Maybe it's a suggestion about how you're invoicing. Maybe you need to separate your invoice out differently. Maybe you need to ship your product differently. All of those things are those facts and circumstances that we rely on to make sure that we're doing it properly. And then the other side of it is we also want to know if there's any exposure. So we want to work with our clients and let them know if we've got some past exposure, maybe there's something that we can do to immediately change that and isolate and eliminate that exposure moving forward.
Kind of like preventative maintenance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nobody wants to be shocked with an audit
Absolutely.
On their business. That's never a good thing. And so, yeah, I like the idea of just kind of this proactive thing as you onboard with new clients, just trying to get ready for them. And again, most photographers are operating in that really, really gray area. And they don't want to hear about these additional business expenses, but it only takes once where you just get nailed. And so, figure it out, do it right. You raise an interesting thing. In the wedding industry, and I don't know if you can even answer this because I'm always confused by it. In the wedding industry, I see all sorts of vendors. They will, let's talk about a catering hall, for example. They'll charge you sales tax on the service fee. Why is that?
Well, typically because of the way that they're invoicing, there may be a combination of product and services in there. And
True.
That's typically where we see that the states will come in and they say, well, if there's no delineation of this, the whole bill is going to be taxed, right? And that's really one of those things where we're looking at it to say, let's make sure we know what the taxable components are versus the non-taxable components. And we have to lay that out properly on the invoicing so that the state, when they come in, can look at that too.
So there is a way, as a business owner, there is a way that if I lay out my pricing structure a certain way, I could, in theory, let's say for a wedding, for example, we come to the conclusion that 70% is service-based and 30% is product-based as far as cost goes. There is a way, if I set up my pricing structure the right way, that we can charge tax on only the applicable amount.
Absolutely, and that's the goal that we're trying to get to. And we kind of go back to the question about, are you comfortable spiking out things on your invoice as opposed to what you've quoted maybe in a contract you've got with somebody about a wedding?
Well, I think it creates a competitive advantage. It's really interesting because we've worked towards accomplishing that in our wedding packages. And I know for us personally, because we've set up our pricing that way, we can now go after wedding clients, and instead of charging them tax on the whole bill, which they shouldn't be paying for, right? The government should get the money they deserve, but not get money they're not deserved. And so, because of the way we're structured, we just pay tax or charge them tax on the applicable amount. And I think that's a competitive advantage. So, all too often, I think, not just photographers, by the way, any business, they look at the different outsourcing mechanisms and they look at it as just a cost center. And it is a cost center, but depending on how we do it, it can actually be a profit center, whether it's preventative maintenance, preventing an audit, or helping us save our own wedding clients money and creating a competitive advantage. That is really interesting stuff. So how does, Joel was on a previous episode, Joel Green, our attorney, and he was talking about this commingling of funds. And so I remember some stories from when we first started where, business owners were like paying their home bills out of their business accounts and this whole commingling of funds. How does that impact, from an accounting perspective, how does that help you end of year come tax time?
Well, I'm sure Joel talked to you a little bit about the corporate veil, and what we're really trying to do is protect those assets and protect personal assets and keep them separated. And so that if something happens where there's some litigation or creditors go after your assets, that's maintained within the corporation as opposed to going after your personal assets. From an accounting standpoint, we're really trying to look at the same thing. making sure that we don't have these commingling of funds. You always hear about the business owner who uses those business accounts as his personal checkbook. And the story that I relate to that is always, if you're selected for audit within your business and the IRS comes in, they're coming in and taking a look at things, and one of the biggest red flags that I see are a lot of these personal expenditures that are running through. And so, what's that going to create for us? It's going to create a lot more time under the audit. The expense is going to be greater.
Right.
Could be tax liabilities, associated with anything. The business is allowed to deduct necessary and ordinary business expenses, but the shareholders' expenses are not included in that. And so we want to make sure.
Yeah, the biggest exposure I'm seeing is where it's from that legal perspective. The commingling of funds now exposes me on a legal level to all sorts of problems.
Absolutely.
You've just got to set it up right so that it can be accounted for correctly, things like that. That part was enough in the beginning to scare me. Because I think I have literally a separate account for every single business. So when I go into the bank here locally, I know they roll their eyes at me because they know they have to probably make 7 different deposits for me. So I drive them a little nuts here locally. Along those lines, what are, from your experience, what are 3 challenges you're seeing small businesses face today, whether it's getting set up or just ongoing operations? What are the 3 challenges you're seeing?
Well, probably the 3 biggest challenges I see, maybe the first one, and I think you alluded to it in a lot of your segment before, is the fact that there's not a lot of planning done. We are very big believers in helping our clients achieve their goals, and so how can we achieve our goals if we really don't know what they are? And so we really work with a lot of our clients to set up budgets. I mean, that's a big thing. You talked about starting off by saying, what is the goal I want to achieve from a revenue standpoint? So, we look at it the exact same way. If we're going to really say, I have a lot of clients that'll come to me and say, did I have a good year or did I have a bad year? And it's all relative. How well did you do against the plan that you had put in place? Now, we can provide some information about benchmarking, their industry, what we see as norms. We can take a look at their historical performance and give them some ideas. But we really should be putting some plans together to really make sure that they achieve their goals. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we see is just lack of planning, lack of budgeting.
Well, I want to expand on that because you've done a great job of at least getting me. I think I'm a good planner. When I look at my business and where I want to grow, the one thing I don't plan on are taxes every year. And you and I always have this amazing conversation end of year. I hate having it, but we talk about what I owe in taxes. And the one thing you've done is helped us start understanding this concept of quarterly. And then, a year like this year, year over year, we didn't want growth. We weren't looking for growth. But going into 2014 now, we're looking for 40% growth. And so in order to avoid a massive tax bill at the end of the year, we have to start planning for that growth, right? And start putting some of that money away so we don't get nailed in penalties and fees at the end of the year.
We want our business owners to have a real good understanding of what that liability is going to be. Like you said, that's the worst case scenario is you come on April 15th and, oh, by the way, you have a bill looking at you for $50,000 and not expecting that and not having put the funds aside.
Yeah, and I do want to share with everyone out there, I don't want people to believe for a second that our books are perfect. We've got all this stuff figured out. To give you guys perspective, when we first started out, we fell 3 years behind in our taxes. Do you remember why? I don't remember why. I'm sure it was my fault. There's no doubt about that.
I don't remember why. I think, matter of fact, we probably got together at that point. And,
I think that's when you started helping us.
Referred to us and said, hey, we've got to get caught up.
Yeah, so the biggest problem for me was in putting, I thought I could do it myself. And so I got myself behind. I kept procrastinating, and then the next thing you know, you couldn't do, 2007 taxes until
Without
2006.
doing the prior year.
And it just kept steamrolling on me, and I got myself into a jam. A lot of penalties, a lot of fees, and then once we started working together, you whipped me into shape and kept me going there, going in the right direction. So, yeah, 3 years behind, not okay. 1 year behind, I can deal with that, and I would imagine there's probably a lot of businesses that are running a little bit behind, but the penalties and fees are just brutal for being late.
Absolutely.
Let's keep going with this. Bookkeeping. Any recommendations around bookkeeping? The average small business is probably going to want to do their own bookkeeping, but in order to work with someone like yourself end of year, what do you need to see from their books in order to make it seamless and inexpensive?
Well, I think it's a great topic to discuss, whether you outsource that or whether you do that internally. And to me, we have clients that just really run the gamut on that. Some of them do a great job and provide us the information, and we roll right into tax returns. We may make a few adjustments, depreciation and some other things, but for the most part, they're pretty clean. They've recorded their transactions, their receipts and disbursements, and they've got a pretty good handle on that. So I always tell people actually when we look out there, there's great softwares out there. QuickBooks is one of them that can do a nice job for your business, but we just have to keep in mind that we have to be committed to that. We have to make sure we train those folks on how to use that software.
Keeping the chart of accounts, making sure they're tracking expenses the right way.
Some of those startup things we can help with. If you're only going to do it one time, maybe it makes sense for us to set up the chart of accounts. We've got other clients in that same industry. We can help with that. But then the day-to-day transactions, we can train somebody to do that. But the problem comes in is, same old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
If we get QuickBooks information that just doesn't make sense when we get to year end, you're probably going to pay more and spend more time correcting it than if we had just done it in the first place. Yeah.
And then when it comes to stuff like that, I mean, when you say it runs the gamut, I'm assuming you've got people who just literally throw all their receipts into an envelope and say, here's all my expenses for January.
Not a lot of those, but absolutely. We do have some. They may send us their checking account activity, their check stubs, and we record all that activity.
Because I know we give you access to our checking
Absolutely.
Stuff, and you guys figure it all out for us.
Right.
And it does make life easier. And I think we're a hybrid too, where Taylor is also tracking some expenses on our end.
And making it easier for us to record those.
And ultimately saving us money, right? So, I mean, I'm very sensitive to that concept where it's like, I don't mind outsourcing, but then I've got limited budget because I've got limited income. All that makes sense. They've just got to figure out what works for them. And I think the hybrid for me and Taylor is what works best because personally I feel like I still have a touch on what my business is doing, but by the same token, I rest well at night knowing I have you and your team guiding me on what I should be doing.
I'm glad you mentioned that because to me, I think it really is a team effort because, when you look at it, that person that just gives us complete access to their checks or what, in looking at that, I'm not here day to day in the business, and so it's hard for me to really recognize and make sure that I'm categorizing everything properly.
True.
So I really need that business owner to help me tell me what those expenses are for so that we've summarized it.
And that's a perfect segue into really the next topic, deductions, right? Because depending on how you classify certain expenses, they're deducted differently. Now, I don't want to go into, I feel like we could talk about deductions for 2 hours. Where I really want to go as far as deductions is I think photographers, because you and I in the beginning went back and forth on this, I buy a new laptop. In my world, or a new camera, in my world, I don't have 5 years to write that off, to amortize that. Is that how you say it?
Depreciate that over
time. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
depreciate that over 5 years. Now, what is it, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, for a computer, what does the government say, according to the schedule, how should that be deducted over how many years?
Typically a 5-year asset, 5 or 7-year asset.
This laptop will never last me 5 years. So in our world of photography, it's very tech heavy. So reality is every 2 years, I'm probably getting a new piece of equipment. So from a deduction perspective, how do we write that off? I know we handle it differently.
Well, luckily the IRS has recognized, basically what they're saying is any asset that you buy that has more than a 1-year life is something that should be capitalized and depreciated. So that's kind of where we got into that discussion about, well, is that thing going to last more than a year? Is it supposed to? Or is it going to be used up within a year? If it's going to be used up within a year, we can expense that, no problem. But the IRS has come along and said, well, we're going to make certain exceptions there. We're going to allow you to take 179 deduction. There's a code section that allows us to write off assets. So within the first year, even though they recognize that that asset may last 5 or 7 years, we're going to let you make an election. We're going to let you write off the full cost of that asset. Those are some neat things that they've done.
Right.
And that helps us, especially in a situation where you said it's not going to last the 5 or 7 years. They've also put out things like bonus depreciation. They had a couple of years where they had what was called 100% bonus depreciation. You could buy an asset and you could write it off just like you did under the Code Section 179. Now, the Code Section 179 numbers have bounced along over the years, and last year you were able to deduct up to $500,000 of fixed asset purchases.
Right off in the first year.
That number has gone down this year to $25,000, so unless there's some legislative change, you're going to be limited in those applications. And they've done away with these bonus depreciations. All those things were done in a slow economy to try and encourage people to go out there and buy a bunch of fixed assets.
That makes sense.
And we don't see the economy having bounced back enough. But as it stands right now with that legislation expiring, we encourage a lot of our folks to look at year end. Did it make sense to accelerate maybe some purchases that you were planning on making in 2014 anyway, just because we could get the write-off
Pull them
right
into
away.
2013. And again, that's the benefit of working with a professional, in my opinion, is that you're asking me those questions that I'm not necessarily thinking about.
Right.
I'd love to think I'm going to think of everything, but a simple nudge like that, well, yeah, in March is one of my biggest trade shows of the year, so I'm probably going to spend money there, but maybe I do pull that spending into 2013
Absolutely.
to get that deduction. And I think that's an important piece to understand, everybody, is that we're buying cameras, lenses, and yes, certain things are going to last 5, 6, 7 years, but a lot of the stuff we buy is so tech heavy, it's never going to last that long. I want to get as much of a deduction as I possibly can, from there. So
one of the things I think that we need to talk about is we do a year-end planning session, and we, from your standpoint, you really kind of fill me in on what are we doing right now and what are we doing moving forward. And one of the things you talked about was some of those assets that had been replaced. I think typically one of the things that we'll see that we miss a deduction on, you were talking about, is a fixed asset that you've placed in service, and we don't know that you pitched it. You threw it away. Well, we're continuing to depreciate that over a 5-year period unless we know that. If we knew it, that you pitched it yesterday, we can write the remaining balance off. And so it's just that good communication to make sure we're not missing deductions when we should.
No, you're right, and it is about that partnership, right? I mean, so I preach about outsourcing and find what I call trusted partners. Because I don't want to worry about this stuff, man. I want to do my thing. I want to be a photographer. I don't want to have to worry about all these crazy things that you worry about. And just like we photographed your daughter, her senior pictures. Absolutely. I bet you don't want to worry about senior pictures.
Absolutely.
You want to worry about your business, and so it's about letting everybody do their job. What about some other deductions that maybe people don't think about? And the two that come to mind are maybe mileage, driving to and from photo shoots, and then maybe if they're running a home-based business. A lot of photographers are running their businesses out of homes. What guidance can you give them on those two topics?
Well, on the vehicles, I think that is a big thing that people kind of forget about, especially when they maybe are starting up a business and they've already got a vehicle that they're using for the business. And so some of those assets that you can both use personally and in the business, we really try and sit down and make sure that they understand what is a legitimate business deduction. And like you said, all the expenses that relate to the income that we're producing should be captured, and so we want to make sure we're not missing those.
And as it pertains to a vehicle, that is I'm driving to the photo shoot, from the photo shoot. Yep. I'm going to the store to pick up prints. All those things we do where I think a lot of people miss. And what's the current deduction on mileage?
Well, it could be as much as 50 cents,
that adds
per
up.
mile. And again, you can either use the standard deduction, which is the mileage rate, or you can use actual expenses. So we have some of our clients that are actually keeping track of the actual expenses, comparing those two to see which one's more tax advantageous for them.
Actual expenses meaning what?
Could be the gasoline, the insurance,
loan
payments, all of those kind of things.
Right, so if they're using their car for a majority business, which is what we do,
right,
we're writing off.
We want to make sure we get the best deduction for that.
Right, for just straight mileage.
Right.
Well, Kevin, thank you for being a partner, and I'm going to put your email address up here, but people can work with you no matter where they are in the United States,
Absolutely.
Right? So you guys cover all that stuff, and if you found Kevin very knowledgeable, and I assure you he is, he's been with me and my company for over almost 7-8 years now, and he has helped us grow and plan and been a true partner. So thank you for being a partner.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you for being here. Everybody, don't go away. Don't forget, I need you to get social. So we're giving away a free consulting session, one-on-one with me. We can do it on Skype. We can do it face-to-face. All you got to do is you got to get out there. You got to get social. So you can find us online on Twitter at Sal Cincotta. You can find us on Facebook at BT Shutter, as well as, here's what I want you to do. I want you to tell me something that stuck with you today, anything that resonated with you. And what we're going to do is hashtag Shutter Network. And next week, we're going to pick one lucky winner to win that free consulting. So don't go away. When we come back, we've got Greg here from SCORE, and he's going to help you and your small business find the help and the consulting and the resources that you need to go from 0 to 60 in no time at all. We'll be right back.
This segment brought to you by ProPhoto, the light shaping company. For more information, visit prophoto.com.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Hopefully I've kept your attention going and you're excited about, I know we're not talking photography, but we're talking business. And if you're looking to punch out of corporate America, chase your dreams, or if you're an established studio and you're looking to, you just need some help, this is the right episode for you. So we are back with Greg Christoffel, and he is here from SCORE. Greg, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really happy to participate in the program you've got going.
Yeah, we're happy you're here, and I've been enjoying some of the off-camera conversation we've been having, and we're definitely going to share it with these guys. But before we get going, tell me a little bit about what is SCORE, because I don't think a lot of people have ever heard of SCORE.
Right, and SCORE is a 50-year-old organization. This is our 50th year, and it's dedicated to assisting small businesses. The current tagline is for the life of your business, from startups through the life cycle of a business.
So even businesses that are on the established but on the
decline?
decline?
I can talk about some of the different pieces of what our chapter does in St. Louis. Nationally, the acronym started out as the Service Corps of Retired Executives.
Oh, no kidding.
Exactly. And the concept was, at the time of the SBA loan guarantee program in the early 60s, people that are going for those loans, they're going to a bank. It's not money from the government. They're getting bank loans. And so they have to basically convince a commercial loan officer at a bank to take them as a customer, as somebody that they'll lend to. And in most cases, you have to have a business plan.
That's right.
You got to have something that's bankable to
Right.
present to a banker, and then if they like what they see, then they'll go through the process to get the SBA loan. But you still have to have a business plan, something bankable to show, and that's where the retired executives, it's not anymore all retired people, I'm retired, but many of our local chapter members are in different kinds of service businesses. And so they could help people go through the process of getting something to take to the bank, and that's kind of how it got started.
That is really interesting, and it's funny you say that when you mention business plan, because part of my teachings, and I did allude to it a little bit today, but part of what I've taught our audience is the power of a business plan. Now, arguably, most photographers are not looking for business loans in general, but you can't run a business without a business plan. You don't know where the hell you're going to do it, so it's really fascinating to know. So your organization would help them put that business plan together.
Exactly. In our chapter, all SCORE chapters throughout the country, and we're everywhere, over 1,000 chapters, from the ski areas in New Hampshire to Sarasota, Florida to San Diego, and then in between. The common factor is every place has a team of people who do free mentoring or counseling to people doing startups, or if they're in business and need help with a turnaround or succession planning for a family-owned business, we get involved, and all the services of that sort are free, and it's all confidential. So if a person comes in and signs up as a SCORE client, then whoever they're working with in the SCORE organization has a confidentiality obligation
To the entrepreneur.
to them, because it's, frankly, a lot of, when you're looking at planning, and what people aren't always thinking about is what's the competitive situation,
Right.
and how are you differentiated, and these all go into that. Where are you going to go with this business plan? We have nuggets we throw out. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail.
Agreed.
And so those are sort of the initial concepts that a person who comes in is going to get a counselor that's going to talk through where they're coming from, what they're doing, why they're doing it, and then guide them through usually a business plan type structure. But not everybody can write a business plan. Not everybody wants to write.
No.
Not everybody wants to do a 5-year financial forecast.
And not everyone should.
Right. and in the a business like what I might call a lifestyle business, like photography, that starts as a hobby, then maybe becomes an avocation, and then maybe is going to become a business.
Right.
Those are different phases, and where the mentor or the counselor at SCORE can help you figure out where are you in that process and what does the next step look like. So maybe like you talk about somebody with a day job that does weddings on the weekend and wants to perhaps turning into a business, we'll work with that person and say, to make it a business, here's the next step.
And I have a question for you now. Just everything you're saying is music to my ears. How much do you guys charge for that?
It's free. The counseling service, mentoring is all free.
There are no more frickin' excuses, right? Greg is telling you right here, right now, it's absolutely free. And so many of you out there, if you haven't learned anything else in this episode, this is it right here. It was worth the price you paid for it, which was free anyway. But you can now go work with the SCORE organization, and we'll tell you how to get in touch with them. If you need that help putting that business plan together, there is no reason imaginable that you're not taking advantage of this resource. Greg, you started going down the path, and I want to get the question a little more focused. At what point what if I am still working my job and I don't know when I want to turn this into a full-time job? Is there a point you would recommend for our audience that they should say, okay, I'm getting ready to make this step, I should contact SCORE, or does it not matter?
It matters, and I'd say sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Because maybe you're in that phase of the weekend, occasional wedding photographer, and you're thinking about, and you're seeing other businesses. It's wedding photography. There are established firms that are all around town, and you're seeing them. If you're in that business, those are your competitors, and seeing them operate as businesses, at some point you're going to stop and say, now how does that happen?
Right.
And getting a counselor working with you early to help you map out what the process is going to be, because maybe you're not going to start your business this year or next year.
So the plan you help them put together could be the plan to go full-time.
It could be, yeah, and it could be a plan that says, year one is 2 years from now.
Right.
And while I'm getting ready for that, here are the things I'm going to do to prepare for that. Because that market research, you were talking about marketing, which is key, and a lot of the people that come in for SCORE counseling, many of us in their first session, the homework is we give them a template of the business plan. And it's, there's maybe 30 different topics. It can be daunting, but there's a marketing and market research section, and we tell them, go do that. Write it the best you can, and when you're done, come back, and now we'll start working on that. Because that, knowing where you're going to fit in a market, something like photography.
Oh, there's photographers everywhere.
There's loads of very talented, creative people doing photography. If you're going to do it as a business in a competitive environment, then how are you going to be different? What's your niche? What your target customers is key. Who are the target customers, and what have you done to research about that target? Why did you pick them, and what is it that they need, and that you can differentiate yourself? Or you could have I'm not going to be the low-cost provider. I'm going to have sterling, flawless service.
Right.
That's going to be my differentiating factor. You have to think that all through, because which path you take is going to affect how you prepare to do it.
Well, and the term I use for your differentiating factor, the one that keeps driving the point home, I call it your X factor. What's your X factor? If the only difference between you and your competitor is you wear blue pants and they wear black pants, you're going to go broke really quick. So you've got to have that, understand what your competitive advantage is, because I would make the argument in today's world of photography especially, and quite frankly, I think most businesses, there's really not much of a barrier to entry, right? If you want to open up a local flower shop, if you want to open up a local cupcake, today's hobby is turning into tomorrow's business. The barrier to entry is not there unless you're doing super science stuff. So with no barrier to entry, everybody becomes your competitor. What's your X factor? And I think they should struggle with the business plan. If they can't go A lot of people don't put the business plan together, and this is feedback I get from our audience because it's too hard. It's supposed to be hard because if it were easy, everyone would run a successful business. And I want to start driving this conversation into something we were talking about offline, which was, I said, I'm more fascinated with being an entrepreneur than I am being a photographer. Don't get me wrong, I love being a photographer. I love being involved in those moments in people's lives. But man, I get my high on running a business. And most people look at what we do and they think, successful entrepreneurs in general, and they think, oh, you're just lucky. Or they come up with a million reasons why they can't do it. And the term you used was pivot.
Right.
And so expand on that for me.
Yeah, what you find is, one of the top terms you use was failure. There's no, I don't like to use the word failure. Entrepreneurs don't fail. A business may not succeed and endure, but the process is a learning experience, and the entrepreneur learns from that.
That's right.
And then pivots. They take where they are. They've learned a lot about resources, what's the technologies available. They learn about their marketplace. They see what competitors are doing, and then they adjust. And the thing is, you can't pivot if you don't have a business plan.
That's right.
And you haven't done the analysis like the SWOT analysis. Your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about a SWOT analysis in general, right? So this is something that in my organization we do quarterly, formally. We sit down as an organization and do it. And I had mentioned this before. We've got, I probably have some of the most business savvy creatives around because I force them to think like business people. Strengths, weaknesses, threats, but the one area I see most creatives miss, opportunity. And for me, I'm always looking for new opportunities, and it's like you said, you learn from the mistakes, and I think the mistakes sometimes, for me, create opportunity. And what is your thought on, I know SWOT's part of the business plan, but what are your thoughts on just SWOT in general? Do you take people through this?
Yes, yeah. It's strategic level concepts that you do in a SWOT analysis, where you take a hard look, and it's a place where a mentor, counselor, some third party coming in to help facilitate it's important because you need objective mirror to bounce your ideas off. So strengths and weaknesses, those are your internal factors. What are my strengths that I bring to it? Take a hard look at where the weaknesses might be that you need to add capacity. And then the externals are the opportunities and the threats, which are the marketplace factors.
That's right, your competitors, and this is the part you're saying was a little more theoretical.
Yeah.
Because you can write that down in a business plan, but until you get into the marketplace and see what happens.
Yeah, and then the business plan is you work through a bunch of concepts, assumptions behind each of those as you apply those to your plan. And you have to come up with pretty concrete metrics of some kind. You got to write them down. This is the part in the business plan, part of our work. A lot of people just don't want to sit down and write because it's not necessarily part of our culture.
Well, and you're dealing with visual artists who
That's right.
That's not the way we're wired.
But by the discipline of writing it down, doesn't have to be long sentences, but those concepts need to be memorialized. Then, when you come back a quarter later or the end of the year, you go back and look at those and you check how were my assumptions? Where was I right? Where was I wrong?
Feedback loop.
And that's where you can build from year to year, and that's your pivot, if you need to, is going to be based on, I thought this was going to be the case.
Right.
It's turning out not to be, so I know I have to change, what can I do? And the opportunity part, I think you're really right, that people, and maybe in small businesses like photography or bakers or that type of business, the people are right in front of their passionate thing.
Right.
And so it's today and next weekend and doing their craft, their art, and they're not necessarily looking out.
Well, you're so right. I mean,
marketplace.
we get stuck, all of us, and I'm guilty of this a little bit too. I've got to force myself. But we get very honed in on what's going on right here, right now, and not understanding that somebody has got to be looking for the icebergs, out a mile out, 2 miles out, and I've tried to be better and better at that as my career has matured, looking for those opportunities. I know, I can tell you, I drive my team crazy because we seem to constantly be starting new businesses or going after new ventures, but again, I'm passionate about being an entrepreneur more than I am anything else. I do want to ask you, stats. You know, there's all sorts of horrifying stats out there, but in your experience or what you know, what are some stats around the success or failure rates of small businesses?
Common numbers that are talked about, and they get studied in many different ways, so you'd need to know what was the basis for these conclusions. 75 to 80% of businesses don't survive 5 years.
It's incredible.
So that means that, but that what I was also saying before is that doesn't mean a failure for the entrepreneur.
Right.
The business that didn't work out is a learning experience, and if they take the lessons and the discipline of and the willingness to do the work to be in business and not just doing art, then they'll move forward and they'll do the next thing. And that's one of the things we see with clients we have at SCORE that come in and have, best mousetrap sort of thing, and work with them. And then as you explore what they're seeing in the marketplace, what is it that people want? I like to tell people, you have to have something that people are going to give you money for. And so you have to be in touch with the marketplace and your target customer.
Right. If people are not eating chocolate, if that day were ever to come, I hope not, I'm a chocolate fan, and you keep making chocolate cupcakes, no one's going to buy your product. You got to pivot and make that move. Right. And I just want to translate for you guys out there, really, because what that means is we're photographers. So don't make the connection that if I fail at photography, I should be an entrepreneur and now I should become a baker. That's not what I'm suggesting to you. However, your business plan, your marketing plan, once you get into the real world, may not be executed the way you thought it would, and you fail. You get knocked down. Pick yourself up, go back at it again. Don't give up just because you went to a bridal show, which is a common conversation I have with a lot of you who want to be wedding photographers. You say, hey Sal, you told me to go and do bridal shows and marketing, and it's not working. Okay, it failed. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, ask yourself some tough questions. Why did it fail? What went wrong? Something went wrong. If you went to a bridal show and there's 1,000 brides at the bridal show and you didn't book any weddings, well, it's not because there were no brides there. Your clients are there, but there's a disconnect between your business and your potential consumer. You're not connecting up and they're not willing to spend money. That's your failure point, right? So that's where you failed. You got to learn and then, of course, figure it out and go back and do it again. So one more question on that. If someone were to work with a SCORE representative, how long will you work with somebody? And obviously it's not every day, but is it as their business grows, they continue to grow with you?
Yes, there's no time limit to it. When we do what we call a scan service, where we work with an existing business, where a team of mentors will go in to the company and sort of kick all the tires and come up with recommendations. Those generally are maybe 6-month process, because what you have is there's something here to be taken care of, and we come up with a plan and launch them on their way. But otherwise it goes on indefinitely, and it's access to thousands of counselors across the whole country in all sorts of disciplines. And so somebody comes to us or to some other chapter and has a specific thing they're trying to figure out about wedding photography,
right,
we'll go online or help them go online to the national, it's score.org is the national website, and help do a search through that whole database. And then those counselors that do internet long-distance mentoring will chime in, and you can pick somebody that has a very special expertise. Each chapter is a little different. Our chapter here, we have one of the most successful restaurant entrepreneurs in St. Louis.
Of all the things.
So if somebody wants to start a restaurant,
which has I think an 80% failure
yeah,
rate or something crazy.
And so we have that particular very deep experience happens to be in our chapter. Other people in other chapters that have something that they could use his help for, well, they can find their way to him.
Gotcha.
So you go in and you request mentoring according to your topic, and then our goal is to triage the requests, and then the person that's doing that farms it out to the right people.
Awesome. All right, so I got one more question for you before we run out of time. Some top reasons that you, in your experience or just through chapter experience, why are small businesses failing? What are you seeing?
Well, the number one reason is failure of plan.
It's as simple as that, which is
There's
what I alluded to this whole
very
episode
much-
today, was you gotta have a plan.
You gotta have a plan. You have to have a plan. And it has to be cogent. So that's where it helps to have a mentor, a counselor, help you develop the plan. Insufficient market research.
So expand on that a little bit. What does that mean?
Well, people have their thing that they're talented at. It could be a web-based women's shoe business or photography, and they're passionate. They've been thinking about it a long time, and it's just as an assumption almost that of course people are going to want this.
So I'm selling brownies to the thinnest city in America. That wouldn't be, that might